Hello. Hi. How are you? How are you doing today? Hopefully you're doing well. Hello, my name is Brittany. Welcome to my channel where I talk about a plethora of books from a plethora of genres. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about the books that I've read in the past 3 months. Since February, I'm going to talk about books I read in February, March, as well as April. I have 10 books that I've read in 3 months. And the first book I want to talk to you today about is the book Kit's Law. This book is following a child. Her name is Kit. She's the main character, and we're learning about her family. So there's the grandmother, the mother, and then there's her. And we're learning about like this trilogy of women, like there's 3 women, and they live in this very small town, and we're kind of going through Kit's life and her journey from adolescence to adulthood. And we're learning about family secrets and the community in which she lives in, and how other people's decisions and actions have irrevocably affected her life in not positive ways, and how she responds to that and deals with that. This book, I gave it 2 stars. I gave it 2 stars because there's a point in the book, like we're reading this book and there's this turn of events, there's these things that happen, there's these shocking moments that I feel as though I should have saw coming. But the issue that I find with this book is that there was no redemptive qualities. And I don't know if that was just because they're trying to make it more realistic to like real life, but we're going through the story of Kit and she has to deal with a lot of stuff, and at the end of the book she is so overwhelmed and consumed based off of her family and her community's inaction that she is left in a place where she can't grow effectively. She has, or branch out to see a different world, and she didn't. I think one part of it maybe is a little bit selfish. She didn't do what I wanted her to do in the book, and maybe that is it. And then 2, it was just icky. Like the stuff that happened was just ugh. No, I don't necessarily would recommend this book. However, I have done pretty much a full plot summary of it. So if you wanted to like know about the book but you didn't want to read the book, I'll leave that video linked like up above as well as in the description box below as well. The next book that I read kind of as a palate cleanser to a certain extent is The Secret Garden. This is a classic. I had not ever read the book. However, I remember as a child really enjoying the movie. The movie was like really fun for me, and so kind of going back and reading the book was just kind of like a nostalgic to a certain extent. The book is about a little girl. The girl has grown up in India initially. This is when there is British colonization of that country, and her parent, her father specifically, is like a commander or something very prestigious in the community. So he has like prestige. However, she is neglected. She's neglected at the same time being very much spoiled. And growing up as a child who is just like spoiled rotten, but also getting everything that she wants but not everything that she needs type of energy. And her parents die because of a pandemic that is happening in India, which leads her to move in with her distant relative. As she's moving in with this distant relative, we're learning things about her family, learning things about her like aunt, and that's kind of where The Secret Garden comes into place. We meet wonderful characters, very colorful characters, and we have a story of friendship and community and familyhood and accountability. But I really enjoyed the book. I gave that book 3 stars. It was completely and utterly adequate. Did I feel like it was leaps and bounds and just like this amazing book? Yes, but not in the place where like it's revolutionary or I thought about it after I finished reading it. The next book that I read is Evil Eye by Tafram. This book is following the character Yara. Her family, her heritage is based in Palestine. Her parents have immigrated to the United States. Yara was born in the United States. However, her childhood was very much secluded and like restricted to a certain sphere of influence. And as we're going through the book, we notice that Yara has pits of rage. She's just random moments in her life where she becomes so rageful and angry to a point where she lashes out and makes not the best decisions. And her husband is concerned about this. And so we're kind of going through the story of trying to figure out why she's angry. Also, like, it's kind of a story of like breaking a generational curse. It's a story of a little bit of like redemption. It's a story of imperfect victims, that it can be true that a person is a victim of abuse and in a very bad situation, but at the same time that character can also be a perpetrator in causing pain and anguish to others. And it was a really good book. I would give that book as well 3 stars. It was completely and utterly adequate. I would definitely like recommend a book, like if you just want like a good little book just to sit down and read through that makes it more thought-provoking and does talk about very serious issues. There are talks about mental health and the impacts of childhood. So Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children is the next book that I wanted to speak about. We are following a boy named Jacob. He is very close with his grandfather, and his grandfather is kind of like on this different beaten path, but he like loves hanging out with him. And his grandfather, as Jacob was a child, told him very like fantastical stories of people in a faraway land. And as Jacob's growing older, he is finding out that the stories that his grandfather told him could be true, and he goes to investigate after a series of unfortunate events. This is a fantasy book. I thoroughly enjoyed this book, did the whole plot summary on this book as well, and got to like talk about it in detail, kind of give my little bit tidbits. I gave this book also a 3 stars. I know it's gonna be hard, especially if you're not a book reader, but I would definitely recommend reading the book rather than watching the movie. I watched the movie twice, and there's parts, specifically like the last quarter of the movie, that is just confusing. Just doesn't make sense. Whereas in the book, there's a level of world building and the limitations to this like fantasy world that is being built that makes sense, that the rules of the world remain consistent, where that's not necessarily like reflected directly in the movie, which can be a little irritating if you're trying to like put the pieces together. Okay, so now we're getting into our 4 to 5 star books, and this is like the order in which I read them, and I had like a little streak of like really good books that I read. The first book I want to talk to you guys about, and I'm going to try not to talk about it too long, is The Yellow Wife. This book, I'm just going to say off the rip, gave it 4 stars. I can't really say like it was missing anything. It was just one of those books that it broke me, but it didn't break me like enough to be 5 stars. Not that I have to be broken for it to be 5 stars, but it was there, but I don't think about it consistently every day. I just think about it like maybe once a month, not like consistently. This book is following a young woman and her journey through life. Her name is Phoebe, and Phoebe is of mixed race, so she has a lighter complexion skin. There are tones of colorism in this book, and Phoebe has been raised and she is a slave. She is enslaved, and Phoebe is going through life, and her mother is doing everything in her power to secure Phoebe's future as a free woman. And things happen, things occur, life happens, stuff goes awry. And we're going through this book and we're learning and we're seeing her grow. And there's this point in the book where she's like, at this point, I have to put my childhood aside and become a woman, because there are obligations that I have, responsibilities that I have for myself in terms of keeping myself alive. And there's also other people who are responsible for me. And so I gotta get my head in the game, and I have to be very disciplined and very strategic about my decisions moving forward. And it is a point where the book is heartbreaking. The book is heartbreaking because it's slavery, right? So we get to see the depravity and the gruesomeness of it. I think for me personally, the thing that like felt really tough was like the mentions and talking about like harm inflicted on children in this book. It's not like a main part of the book, but it is a semblance or an example that we are shown in this historical fiction to really solidify the ugliness of this reality. Alright, so that's The Yellow Wife. I could talk for quite a while, but I want to kind of keep it brief. Let's move on to the next book. The next book that I want to talk to you guys about today is 7 Days in June. We are following Eva and Sean. These two people are grown adults. They are in their 30s. They have lived life. They have seen things. And I love that about books. I love reading about grown people in their like 30s, 40s, 50s. Like, that sounds fun. Reading about people in their 20s, it's just like, I'm already here. I don't want to, like, I want to read about something else. Anyway, so they are established writers, both of them respectfully. Eva is more of a writer. She has a very niche set demographic in terms of her audience. She writes like vampire books, whereas Sean is more of the, I'm going to try to write a classic type of author. And one day at a conference, by happenstance, they meet, they collide, their lives collide. However, this is not the first time that they've met. This is not the first time that they've seen each other. They've known each other for 2 weeks when they were seniors in high school, and we're going along the journey, having flashbacks from their childhood to their present, and we're switching points of view, and that's the story. It is a romance story. However, it's not perfect. It's not seamless. It is not these perfect puzzle pieces that just perfectly fit together succinctly. They each are coming with their stuff. They're each coming with things that they need to work on. And then there's not even like things that they have to work on. There's certain things that they're dealing with in life that is just life, right? It's just life. And it's not one of those things where somebody can just sweep you off your feet and like save you from. You know, it's not this romanticized version of love. It's this very heartfelt, real, hands in the dirt type of love. And I loved it. I gave this book 4 stars. I feel that in terms of romance books, like this is the type of romance books that I like to read, because it's like, it feels legitimate. It feels real. I definitely am going to read other things that T.O. Williams has, and some other books. I have to. Moving on, the next book is The House of My Mother by Sherry Frankie. Yeah, girl. By Sherry Frankie. Sherry Frankie is the oldest daughter of Ruby Frankie. Ruby Frankie is previously known for she was a family vlogger. So she was on YouTube and she vlogged her family, and she gained a lot of followers and views based off of her like conservative, very, someone would say like strict parenting style. And the book follows basically Sherry's viewpoint and her perception of her childhood and the reality of her childhood and the things that she had to deal with, and who her mother was in terms of in front of the camera and kind of the monster behind it. Her mother, over the years, the thing is, she was abusive. She was emotionally abusive, which then turned into physical abuse for all of her 6 children, whether in the form of actual physical pain or neglect or just psychological torment. All of her children faced that in some aspects, one or the other, and we're kind of following her perspective. Not to get too much into it, there's a lot to talk about. There has been documentaries and podcasts about it, but I definitely would listen to it. I listened to it on audiobook, and Sherry Frankie is the one who narrates it, which I think definitely adds to the whole experience of hearing her story. And yes, I would definitely read it or listen to it. So yeah, let's move to the next book. The next book is The Three of Us. I did do a book review on this book. This book is about a conflict between a husband, a wife, and the wife's best friend. I did not like this book. We went down to 2 stars. This was a 2-star rating. So this book was 2-star rating. The book basically it's over the span of one day. The husband comes home from work to his wife and the wife's best friend chilling at the house. And over a series of events, things were said, rumors were had, and there's a conflict between all 3 of them that starts to arise, that start to occur. Everybody has their parts, everybody has their responsibilities, and the book is annoying. I gave this book 2 stars, and I kind of feel bad about that, but it's how I feel. The book is annoying. There's one character in the book that I think is just grossly and wholeheartedly disrespectful and rude, and I don't like them. The issues that I had with this book is that it kind of felt flat a little bit. It felt flat in terms of the conflict. The conflict that they arise or that it's brought up in the plot doesn't actually feel, it doesn't feel like the condition, it feels like the symptom of the condition. And there's like, I think that I didn't like there was no resolution. Everybody's integrity was questioned, but there was no specific character that I was just like, oh yeah, I kind of like. Like there was one character where I was just like, out of everybody, I can sympathize with you the most. But there's another character in the book where I'm just like, yeah, no, you gotta go, please. The next book I want to talk to you guys about is By the Book. So if I had a pot, right? You have a pot, metaphorical. And in this pot, I put a dash of the Beauty and the Beast. I put a rich man who has too much time on his hands, along with a newly established girl woman who is trying to be established in the publishing industry. I added a little bit of California, a little bit of the beach. I gave very unrealistic timing and overall just good vibes. That's the book. I think it was completely and utterly adequate. I gave it 3 stars. It was a good book. It was fine. It's one of those books I would definitely like list on like a palate cleanser book. Like if you just need a palate cleanser, like for example, I'm about to read the book Push, right? Push is Precious, but the book form, right? So after I read that book, mentally, I need a little palate cleanser. I need a little something to dissolve all the atrocities that I just read. That is this book. By the Book is it's a pretty clean book, pretty straightforward book, and it is like this romance, but the romance is a part of the book, but it gives you a lot of build up. I think I would consider this a slow burn. I would consider it a slow burn book, and it's fine. It's fine. Like the problems that arise are like not like the end of the world problems. Everything gets tied into a perfect little bow at the end. It isn't quite what I would like deem as like a overly standard like cheesy romance book. It has a little bit more nuances. It has a little bit more topics in terms of like seriousness to them, but it's simple. The conflicts that arise, they get fixed relatively quickly, and it's a really just good palate cleanser. Overall, pretty accurately decent. Now, the last book that I want to talk to you about, and I'm going to try to talk about this brief. I really, honestly, I promise you I will. The last book I want to talk to you about is The Handmaid's Tale. Yeah. I want to get this out of the way. I gave this book 5 stars. I gave this book 5 stars because I felt as though I had to. I've been thinking about this book for like all of April. I'm rewatching the TV series. I reread the book, which I read the book first through audiobook, and then this is the first time like actually physically reading it. And I went away a while, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna read it again. I definitely got like the physical copy, and I'm really excited that I did so. Let me tell you what the book is about before I start rambling on about nothingness. Okay, we have Offred. Also, June. In the book, we find out, or you can find out, that the character who is speaking's name is June, kind of by process of elimination. We have June offered, and the book is kind of telling us these three parts that are developing over time as we go through this book. We have the past, which is the world as we kind of know it today. We have when she is in this center where she's being trained, and then we have her as a handmaiden, as her new established position and responsibility in this community called Gilead. So let me set the stage. It is geographically the United States, but it is no longer the United States. It is after this country has gone through another civil war, and this civil war is about religious movement. It has been brought along because of the infertility rates that have skyrocketed. So there's not that many children being born in this country anymore. This group, called the Sons of Jacob, take over. They suspend the Constitution and make these small adjustments to American society that people think are temporary, but they're permanent. Over time, the United States is no more. The life that we knew it is no longer anymore, and now this is the country of Gilead. Gilead is a very structured regime that has very strong expectations of the people in the society, specifically women. Women are classified into several groups, and one of the more important groups in this society is the handmaids. They are instructed to bring forth children, and that is their role. That is where I'm going to leave it in terms of, yeah, that's what I would give this a 5-star. It is so good. It's good. It's good. And it's eye-opening, and it can be hard to read, and it can be so sobering to a certain extent because it's very much in your face. But I think it's so necessary, and there's so much correlation between this book and real life historical moments, and that's not by happenstance. Like, the author has specifically expressed that when she wrote this book, it wasn't just out of nowhere. It was kind of inspired or motivated by real world events. That's where I'm going to leave it. It's a 5-star book. It's a 5-star book, and you should read it. It's a 5-star book, and you should read it. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. Anyway, I want to thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Thank you for listening to me yap. And guess what? I'll see you next time.